In 1944, something strange began appearing in the skies above America. It wasn't an aircraft, it wasn't a missile, and it didn't make any sound. It drifted silently, carried only by the wind. At first, no one understood what it was. Then the explosions began. Fires broke out in remote forests. Objects fell from the sky, attached to something no one expected. These were not accidents. They were part of a secret weapon, a weapon launched from thousands of miles away, across the Pacific Ocean. A weapon designed to strike America without warning. This is the story of the most unusual attack on the United States during World War II, the Japanese balloon bombs. By 1944, the war in the Pacific had turned against Japan. American forces were advancing steadily. Island after island was being captured. Japanese cities were under increasing threat of bombing. Japan needed a way to strike back. But there was a problem. The United States was too far away. Sending aircraft across the Pacific was extremely difficult. Fuel was limited, and American defenses were strong. So Japanese scientists and military planners began looking for an unconventional solution, something that required no pilot, no return journey, and no direct navigation. The answer came from the sky itself. High above the Pacific Ocean, powerful air currents known as the jet stream moved at incredible speeds. These winds could carry objects across thousands of miles in just a few days. If something could be placed into that current, it could travel all the way to North America. This idea would become one of the strangest military strategies of the war. The weapon they designed was surprisingly simple. Large balloons made from paper, but not ordinary paper. They were carefully constructed, using multiple layers, designed to hold hydrogen gas. Each balloon could rise high into the atmosphere, reaching the powerful jet stream. Attached beneath the balloon was a system of bombs and a clever altitude control mechanism. As the balloon traveled, it would lose gas and begin to descend. When it dropped too low, the system would release small sandbags to make it lighter again. This allowed the balloon to stay at a consistent altitude for long distances. Once it reached the end of its journey, the remaining payload would be released. Explosive bombs, and sometimes incendiary devices designed to start fires. The goal was not precision. The goal was fear. If enough balloons reached the United States, they could start wildfires, damage infrastructure, and create panic among civilians. Between late 1944 and early 1945, Japan launched thousands of these balloon bombs. They were released from remote locations along the Japanese coastline. One by one, silently rising into the sky. Carried by the jet stream, they began their long journey across the Pacific Ocean. It was a distance of more than 8,000 kilometers. No engine, no guidance system, just wind and time. Many balloons were lost at sea. Some failed during launch, but hundreds successfully crossed the ocean, and when they reached North America, they began to fall. At first, no one in the United States knew the attack had even begun. The balloons arrived silently. Carried across the Pacific by powerful winds, they began to descend over North America. Some landed in forests, others fell in open fields. A few drifted close to small towns. Most people who saw them had no idea what they were looking at. Strange objects, made of paper, with wires and metal attached beneath. Some balloons exploded on impact. Others remained intact, waiting silently. By the time authorities began to notice a pattern, dozens of these objects had already landed across the western United States. The attack had begun, without warning. Local authorities started receiving unusual reports. Farmers spoke of objects falling from the sky. Forest rangers reported unexplained fires in remote areas. In some places, civilians found pieces of paper balloon material scattered across the ground. At first, these incidents seemed unrelated, but as more reports came in, a pattern started to form. These were not random events. Something was reaching America from across the ocean, and no one knew how many more were on the way. Then something happened that changed everything. In May 1945, in the state of Oregon, a group of civilians went on a picnic in a remote forest area. Among them were a woman and several children. While exploring the woods, they discovered something unusual on the ground. It looked like a strange balloon, partially collapsed, with metal parts attached. Curious, they approached it. Moments later, the device exploded. The blast killed all 6 people instantly. They became the only known fatalities on the American mainland, caused by enemy action during World War II. The news shocked authorities. This was no longer just a strange phenomenon. It was a real and deadly threat.
The United States government quickly realized the seriousness of the situation. Military and intelligence agencies began investigating the source of the balloons. After careful analysis, they discovered the truth. These were weapons launched by Japan, carried by the jet stream across the Pacific Ocean. The realization was both impressive and alarming. Japan had found a way to strike America from thousands of miles away without using aircraft. The government knew they had to act fast, but they also made a surprising decision. Instead of warning the public immediately, the U.S. government chose to keep the attack secret. Newspapers were instructed not to report on the balloon incidents. Radio broadcasts avoided mentioning them. The goal was strategic. If Japan believed the balloons were working, they would continue launching more. But if there was no information coming from America, Japan might assume the operation had failed and stop the attacks. This silence became a powerful weapon. Without feedback, Japan had no way of knowing the true impact of their campaign. For months, the balloon bombs continued to arrive. Hundreds of them drifted across North America. Some caused small fires. Others landed harmlessly. Many were never found. The scale of the operation was surprising. More than 9,000 balloons were launched. Yet only a fraction reached the United States. Still, the idea itself was remarkable. A weapon guided only by wind, traveling across an entire ocean, and striking a distant enemy. It was a silent war, fought high above the clouds. Despite the scale of the operation, the balloon bomb campaign did not achieve its intended goal. Japan had hoped to create massive wildfires across American forests. They expected panic among civilians. They believed the United States would be forced to divert resources to deal with attacks at home. But none of that truly happened. Most of the balloons never reached their target. Many fell into the ocean. Others landed in remote areas where they caused little to no damage. And because of the media blackout, the Japanese government received almost no information about the results. From their perspective, it appeared as if the operation had completely failed. Without confirmation, confidence in the project began to fade. Eventually, the launches stopped. The silent attack ended quietly. Even though the mission failed strategically, the concept behind it was remarkable. This was one of the first intercontinental weapons ever used in warfare. A device launched from one continent, traveling across an ocean, and reaching another without direct control. Decades later, similar ideas would evolve into advanced missile systems, but in 1944, this approach was something entirely new. It showed how innovation can emerge even in desperate times, and how war often pushes technology in unexpected directions. Although the physical damage was limited, the psychological impact of the balloon bombs was significant. The idea that an enemy could strike from thousands of miles away, without warning, changed how military planners thought about defense. It proved that oceans were no longer absolute barriers, and that even distant nations could be reached through unconventional methods. For the United States, it was a reminder that the war was not as far away as it seemed. Even the skies above America were no longer completely safe. Imagine a different scenario. What if hundreds of balloons had landed in populated areas? What if massive wildfires had spread across forests and cities? What if panic had taken hold across the country? The results could have been very different. Industrial production might have slowed, military focus could have shifted, public fear might have grown. While it may not have changed the final outcome of World War II, it could have altered how the war was experienced inside the United States. Sometimes, even a small change in strategy can create a much larger impact. Today, the story of the balloon bombs is often forgotten, overshadowed by larger battles, powerful weapons, and major historical events. But it remains one of the most unusual attacks ever carried out during the war. A silent weapon, floating across the sky, carried only by the wind. Launched by Japan against the United States under the secret mission known as the Fugo balloon bomb campaign. It did not bring destruction on a massive scale. It did not change the course of history. But it proved something important. That even the most distant nations are never completely out of reach. And that sometimes, the most dangerous threats, are the ones no one sees coming.